of not necessarily distinct, but some discrete sets of skills related to occupational skills. But we also found there's a lot of technology skills that are more like foundational enabling skills that are underlying things to perform tasks, also within other competencies, and that maybe shouldn't be approached, maybe should be approached in the context of doing other things. Let's say if you fill out a document in paper form, maybe that's the place to address. Now, there's more and more documents online. If nowadays you walk into a Canada Service outlet, they sit you on a computer and you have to fill out any claims that you do online. So that's probably what I think we're trying to say that's the better place to do it, rather than to separate the two things and just because it's a technological medium that you use. So we're trying to focus on the context and those foundational enabling skills. That led us to the next step is a development of task groups to bundle them and the sorting of those task examples in those groups.
I remember that as being really, really fun.
Yes, oh boy, yes. Yes, that was a lot of, I do remember that. That was a lot of fun.
There was a lot of sticky notes.
Yes, sorry, I have to catch up here in my and we did that in a way we wanted also to make sure that we address the learner's needs in all streams. In Ontario, we work with 4 streams, the deaf stream, the English stream, the French stream, and the native cultural stream. And pathways that are, a pathway idea is being used in the Ontario adult literacy curriculum and under a bigger umbrella of Employment Ontario to the pathways for learners. We were, like I alluded to before, we were trying to look at the different contexts, work, family, and community, and that we were wanted to look at this idea of civic participation, of full participation in the workplace, and things like that. There's a little video I can show you. It's a good resource also for you to know. It's called Common Craft. Some of you might be familiar with that, and even it taught me something. But that kind of illustrates a little bit that there's a lot of things outside using software that are quite important to.
Often, there is really only one thing standing between your sensitive information and criminals: your password. If they get it, they can get into bank accounts and private files and wreak havoc. For this reason, it's important to know what makes a password strong and secure. This is Secure Passwords, explained by Common Craft. Chances are you use passwords every day to open your computer, log on to your favorite websites, to get work done. The easy route is to have a simple password that works everywhere. Unfortunately, this can be a problem. Criminals are very good at guessing passwords. Some have computer programs that can make millions of guesses until something works. And if they already know information about you, it's even easier. Your job is to create a password that is very hard to guess. Here's how. Your first thought may be to use a pet's name, a birth date, an address, or parts of a phone number. These things are too easy for criminals to discover, so don't use them. Your password should not include information about you. Thankfully, there are ways to have memorable but hard to guess passwords. Consider this. In addition to single words, phrases can also be easy to remember. Maybe it's a favorite song lyric or quote. An example is, Jack and Jill went up the hill. That's easy to remember, right? Well, your password is there. It's the first letter of each word. In this example, this would be your password. That's not something that's easily guessed. Here's why. First, it's not in the dictionary. This makes guessing it harder. There are about 60,000 words in English. A computer can test out those words pretty quickly, so don't use them. But there's more. This password could still be stronger by adding uppercase letters, numbers, or special characters. So now this is a very strong password, but there's still a risk. If you write it down, be careful where you keep it. Be aware that someone can look over your shoulder or find it in your trash. Giving it to loved ones is also risky. They may not be as cautious as you are. Only you should know your password. Criminals may also try to fool you into handing it over via phone calls. Never tell anyone your password over the phone. And be careful when you get an email that asks for a password. It could be a scam. To help avoid problems, don't use the same password everywhere. That's like having one key that unlocks everything you own. The stakes are high if you lose it. Also, be careful if you use a computer that is not yours. Let's say you check email using a computer in a store, library, or computer lab. You log in, check email, and walk away. The next person to use that computer now has access to your email account and all the information in it. Always remember to log out of each site you visit on a computer that isn't yours. Passwords are an essential part of life online, and if we're not careful about keeping them secret, they can cause big problems. By understanding the risks and making passwords stronger, we can feel a little more secure. I'm Lee Lefevre, and this has been Secure Passwords, explained by Commoncraft.
I think that also speaks to Maria's point too, that by no ways do we have to feel as practitioners that we're expert on those things. This is, when I saw this first, I thought, oh, geez, my password's not that secure after all. So they're good. Those kind of things are good teaching moments because we're wrestling all with those kind of things, and if we approach them together with the learners, I think that can go a long way. Commoncraft is a great resource. They have things like borrowing money in plain English, all those kind of things that a lot of adults wrestle with and try to understand. But there's lots of stuff. There's lots of stuff out there. That's just an example. Just get back here. Oops. No, we're not starting over. Sorry, Maria.
Please, I don't think anybody wants to start over.
I know. Okay, from current slide, I think that's what I'm supposed to do. There we go. The next step was a review of task groups, of course, because you need to, our initial sense during those long hours trying to sort things, as Maria said, weren't always right, and often the task groups just form as you're adding things to it, and we were mostly looking for that natural connection to task groups in other competencies. For example, like I gave the example before, that same task but performed with a digital technology medium, like the document, the print-based document and the online document. Where does that belong? But it's tricky because often when you talk about the other competencies, the technology medium is not really foremost on somebody's mind. So we're trying to infuse that. And the transitional value in enabling learners to use technologies with the same ease and effectiveness as print-based materials. What that means is that we were asking ourselves, like the very, very foundational enabling skills when it comes to print-based materials. Just to some learners, we have to teach to other learners with those, but there's an expectation, kind of, that people understand. A print-based material, it has a certain format. There's something there, and that's what goes to document use. And in a way, it's the same kind of approach to web-based resources. There's a certain structure to it, and we're hoping that eventually that with addressing those structures, that becomes more.
Well,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes. Thank you.
I think with these, that crossover is.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
There you can see it
Yeah.
happening. Yeah.
I mean, I gave it to my mother a couple of weeks ago, and she wouldn't give it back.
Yeah, see?
She's an
Yeah,
eraser.
and
Yes.
that was our-
Yes. Much more intuitive.
Yes.
Those things, and as they become more intuitive, I think I always think about. I mean, this might be a simplistic example, but every time I look at a PDF on a computer screen, I'm reminded we haven't made that switch from the print-based to it doesn't even fit on the screen.
Right.
I have to scroll up and down, right? So kind of I'm thinking maybe one day it'll be the inverse, that it'll look odd when it's printed, or when you look at something printed, it'll remind you that it was produced through a technological medium. And that's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just saying, like, it's the way things look. How are we doing for time,
I
actually?
don't know, I thought that our marshal was in.
Sorry.
Quarter after.
And how long do we have until?
To 9:30,
Ah.
or 9:25, because we have to, I talked too long, because we have to
That's
give
okay.
people time for evaluation.
Yes. Okay. Task scaling is a big thing. I'm not going to say too much about that, but that's basically has to do. We're looking at context, prior knowledge, experience a person brings to a situation can make a significant difference to performance. We're trying to focus on that. Look at the kind of vocabulary that's being used, the context, the task content, the text content. And text and task complexity, things like continuous text, documents, including visual displays, and also the interaction required by a person, which again, especially when you're using a technological medium, is right there. So text length, complexity, the process required responding to a question, information requested by a task, and the inference required to complete a task. Now, this is scary, I know. And by no means you have to, it's a little bit hard to read too. It's just to show you that, that here are the competencies that at the time were being discussed in the Ontario Adult Literacy Curriculum. Communication, ideas, and information, self-direct, act autonomously, find and use information, numeracy, engage and work with others. I believe at this point, self-direct, act autonomously, engage and work with others are being still talked about. They're all still being developed, but if they are standalone competencies. And this is just to show that we're trying to see where those enabling foundational skills fit into those competencies, but also look at technology or use digital technology as a standalone competency in terms of select software, select hardware, use the internet, search and navigate, operate digital devices, install hardware, install and add and run software, manage connectivity and networks, manage digital access, security and privacy, and manage digital files and records. That's kind of the task groups that we came up with during that process. So we don't have a lot of time for activities, but maybe we can quickly, I'm not sure how many of you work with learners directly or with learners in your program. Maybe we can do a show of hands what digital technology uses are important, or do you see anything that stands out, maybe any comments? That's maybe the easiest way to do it. What digital technology uses are, do you think, particularly important for your learners with the learners that you deal with? Is there anything that sticks out?
Operate digital devices.
Yes, okay.
Install and run software.
The software, okay.
Generally,
Mhm.
all of them.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, but really, I mean, you look at workplace essential skills, a lot of the adult learners that we're working with that's what stalls their literacy growth
Yeah.
in society. It goes back to the original
Yeah.
quote that you had. And so really just positive experiences in every single one of them.
Good,
Really.
good. And does it feel like, I mean, that's a good way, I think, for us to, it's the first time that we actually talk about this in an open forum. Does it make sense to you in terms of the groups that are there, or does it seem like a natural grouping or something like that? Maybe that's too big a question to ask right now.
It takes a little while to think about.
Yeah. Well, feel free to get back to us on that. We'll be interested to our cards. We'll be very interested to hear any comments. Do your learners use or have any need to use digital technologies when performing tasks described by other competencies? Do you think like the that approach that I was talking about before, to address the technology medium within the other competencies, not to have to go outside of that and say, like, for example, well, if you're filling out a document online, really your computer lab teacher has to teach you how to do that, right? What do you think about that?
I think that all of them cross over anyway.
Yeah.
Like each of these cross over to each other as well.
Yeah.
So why should you say the computer use, technology use should not exist on its own. It should only be these. I think it has to exist on its own